If you're watching this, hit subscribe and let me know where you're watching from in the comments. This story will shock you to your core. The sound of metal scraping against metal still haunts my dreams. Standing on my own front porch at 9 p.m., watching my daughter-in-law Lauren change the locks on the house where I'd lived for 32 years. The house where I raised my son Samuel. The house where just 3 days earlier I'd kissed my only child goodbye for the last time. "You can't do this," I whispered through the glass door, my voice breaking. "This is my home." Lauren looked up from the screwdriver in her hands, her blonde hair catching the porch light. Her smile was cold as winter rain. "Not anymore, Martha. Samuel's gone, and everything belongs to me now." That's how marriage works. But what Lauren didn't know, what nobody knew except Samuel and his lawyer, would change everything in just 5 days. Because 2 days before that terrible car accident, my son had made a decision that would save my life and destroy hers forever. Let me back up and tell you how a grieving 58-year-old mother named Martha Bennett discovered that sometimes the people closest to us are the most dangerous, and how karma walked through the doors of Caldwell and Associates law firm with a vengeance that still gives me chills. 3 years ago, when Samuel brought Lauren home for Christmas dinner, I thought she was perfect for him. Blonde, beautiful, and charming. She complimented my cooking and laughed at my husband's old jokes. Even helped with the dishes. "She's wonderful," I told Samuel as we watched her play with our neighbor's dog in the backyard. "You better not let this one get away." Samuel smiled, but something flickered in his eyes. Something I should have paid more attention to. "She's something else, that's for sure, Mom." After my husband Robert died 2 years ago, Lauren became even more attentive. Calling daily, bringing groceries, staying for dinner. Samuel seemed happier than ever, and I was grateful my son had found such a caring wife. "You're so lucky to have Lauren," my friend Helen would say during our weekly coffee dates. "Not every daughter-in-law would be so devoted." I agreed completely. When they got married last spring in a beautiful ceremony at the country club, I cried happy tears. Finally, Samuel had the family he deserved. But 6 months ago, things started changing. Lauren's daily calls became weekly, then stopped altogether. When I asked Samuel about it, he'd shrug and say she was busy with work. The warm hugs turned into quick kisses on the cheek. The dinner invitations dried up. "Is everything okay with you two?" I asked Samuel during one of our lunch dates in September. His jaw tightened. "Everything's fine, Mom. Lauren's just going through some things." That was the first lie. But I wouldn't discover how deep the lies went until it was almost too late. The car accident happened on a Tuesday morning in October. Samuel was driving to work when a truck ran a red light and slammed into his car. The police said he died instantly. I remember Lauren's call like it was yesterday. Her voice was shaking, but looking back now, I wonder if those were tears of grief or something else entirely. "Martha," she sobbed into the phone. "Something terrible has happened. Samuel ... he's gone." The funeral was beautiful. Samuel would have loved seeing all his friends and coworkers gathered together, sharing stories about his kindness and humor. Lauren played the grieving widow perfectly, accepting condolences with just the right amount of dignity and sadness. But I noticed something strange during the service. When Pastor Williams talked about Samuel's love for family, Lauren's eyes weren't on the casket. They were on her phone, checking messages. When I reached for her hand during the prayer, her fingers were ice cold and stiff. After the burial, everyone gathered at our house for the reception. I was in the kitchen, arranging sandwiches, when I heard Lauren talking to her friend Jessica in the hallway. "It's tragic, but at least you won't have to worry about money," Jessica was saying. "Samuel had that good job at the engineering firm, plus the house is worth at least $400,000. "More than that," Lauren replied, her voice lower than usual. "The life insurance alone is worth $500,000, plus his retirement account and the investments." I dropped the sandwich I was holding. My son had been dead for less than a week, and his wife was already calculating her inheritance. That night, after the last guest left, Lauren helped me clean up. She seemed different somehow, less sad, more energetic. Martha, she said as we loaded the dishwasher. I know this is hard, but we need to talk about practical things. The house, Samuel's accounts, all that, my heart sank. Can we wait a few days? I'm not ready to think about. I know it's difficult, she interrupted, her voice taking on a tone I'd never heard before. Firm, almost commanding. But Samuel would want us to handle things properly. He always said I was better with financial matters than he was. This was news to me. Samuel had always been excellent with money, just like his father. What are you saying, Lauren? She turned to face me, and for a split second, I saw something in her eyes that made my blood run cold. Something that looked almost like triumph. I'm saying that as Samuel's wife, I'm his next of kin now. The house, the accounts, everything transfers to me. It's just how these things work. The next morning, I woke up to find Lauren packing boxes in the living room. What are you doing? I asked, tying my robe tighter around my waist. I'm sorry, Martha, but you need to find somewhere else to stay. She didn't even look up from the box she was sealing. This is my house now, and I need space to grieve privately. The words hit me like a physical blow. Lauren, this is my home. I've lived here for over 30 years. Robert and I bought this house when Samuel was just a baby, and now Samuel's gone. Her voice was matter-of-fact, cold. I'm his widow. Everything belongs to me. I've already talked to a lawyer. I felt the room spinning around me. But where am I supposed to go? You'll figure something out. You're a smart woman. She stood up, brushing dust off her black dress. I need you out by tonight. Tonight, Lauren, please. Can we talk about this? Work something out. Maybe I could rent a room from you, or... No, the word was sharp as broken glass. I've made up my mind. This is hard enough without having you around, reminding me of Samuel every day. That afternoon, I called my sister Margaret, sobbing into the phone. She lived 3 states away, but she immediately offered me her guest room. Pack what you can fit in your car, she said. We'll figure out the rest later. That girl has lost her mind with grief. But as I packed my clothes and photos, I couldn't shake the feeling that Lauren wasn't grieving at all. She was celebrating. At 7 p.m., I loaded my suitcase into my old Honda and took one last look at the house where I'd raised my family. Lauren was in the living room, talking animatedly on her phone with someone. No, it's perfect, she was saying. The old lady's finally gone. We can move forward with the renovations next week. My heart stopped. Renovations? Samuel had been dead for 4 days, and she was already planning to change his childhood home. I knocked on the front door, using my key one last time. I'm leaving now, I said quietly. But Lauren, I need to ask you something. Did you love my son? She looked at me like I was stupid. Of course I loved him, Martha. That's why this is so hard. That's why I need space. But her eyes told a different story. As I drove away, I saw her in my rearview mirror, changing the locks on the front door, making sure I could never come home again. I'd been at Margaret's house for 2 days when the phone call came. I was sitting in her kitchen, staring at a cup of coffee I couldn't bring myself to drink, when the phone rang. Is this Martha Bennett? The voice was professional, kind. Yes, this is Martha. Mrs. Bennett, this is William Caldwell from Caldwell and Associates law firm. I was your son Samuel's attorney. I'm very sorry for your loss. I gripped the phone tighter. Thank you. But I think there might be some confusion. Samuel's wife, Lauren, said she already spoke to a lawyer about his will. There was a pause on the other end of the line. Mrs. Bennett, I need you to come to my office as soon as possible. There's been a significant development regarding your son's estate that you need to know about. What kind of development? I'd rather discuss this in person. How soon can you get here? Something in his tone made my hands shake. Is everything okay? Lauren said everything goes to her automatically because she was his wife. Mrs. Bennett. Mr. Caldwell said carefully, that's not entirely accurate. Can you be here tomorrow at 10 a.m.? I hung up the phone with my heart pounding. Margaret looked at me from across the kitchen. What was that about? I don't know, I whispered. But I think I'm about to find out why Samuel seemed so unhappy these last few months. The next morning, I sat in Mr. Caldwell's office, my hands folded in my lap. He was a kind-looking man in his 60s, with gentle eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. Mrs. Bennet, what I'm about to tell you might come as a shock. He opened a file folder and pulled out several documents. 2 days before his accident, Samuel came to see me. He wanted to make some urgent changes to his will. My heart started racing. What kind of changes? He moved all of his assets, the house, his life insurance, his retirement accounts, everything into your name. The room went silent except for the sound of my own heartbeat thundering in my ears. That's impossible, Lauren said. Lauren was not aware of these changes. Samuel specifically requested that we keep this information confidential until after the funeral. I stared at him, unable to process what I was hearing. But why? Why would he do that? Mr. Caldwell's expression grew grim. He discovered some things about his wife that deeply troubled him. He hired a private investigator. He slid another folder across the desk to me. Mrs. Bennet, I need to warn you. What's in this file is going to be very difficult to see. My hands trembled as I opened the folder. The first thing I saw was a photograph of Lauren kissing a man I didn't recognize in the parking lot of an expensive restaurant. Who is this? I whispered.
His name is Marcus Webb. He's a real estate developer.
According to the investigator's report, Lauren has been having an affair with him for 8 months. 8 months. While I thought she was being distant because she was busy with work, she was betraying my son. But there's more, Mr. Caldwell continued. Mr. Webb specializes in buying older homes in established neighborhoods, tearing them down, and building luxury condos. The pieces started falling into place with horrifying clarity. She was planning to sell the house, I said, my voice barely audible. Not just sell it, demolish it. The investigator found emails between Lauren and Mr. Webb discussing the property's potential. Your house sits on a corner lot in a rapidly developing area. It's worth significantly more to a developer than to a family. I felt sick to my stomach. Samuel found out about this 2 weeks ago. The investigator gave him copies of the emails, photographs of the affair, and evidence that Lauren had already started the process of transferring the house deed to her name only. He showed me more documents. Legal papers with forged signatures, property appraisals, communications with demolition companies. She was going to throw me out anyway, I realized. Even if Samuel had lived? It appears so. But Samuel caught her in time. He came to me immediately and changed everything. Every account, every asset, every penny, it all goes to you. I looked at the will, my son's signature clear and strong at the bottom. 2 days before he died, he had protected me from his wife's betrayal. There's something else, Mr. Caldwell said quietly. Something that concerns me greatly. He pulled out a police report. I took the liberty of requesting the accident report from the police department. The truck that hit Samuel's car was stolen that morning from a construction site where Mr. Webb was working. My blood turned to ice. Are you saying? I'm not saying anything definitive. But the timing is very suspicious. Samuel discovers his wife's affair and her plans to steal his mother's home. He changes his will to protect you. 2 days later, he's dead in an accident involving a vehicle from his wife's lover's worksite. The room spun around me. I gripped the arms of my chair to keep from falling over. We need to call the police, I whispered. I already have. Detective Rodriguez is reopening the investigation into Samuel's accident. But first we need to handle the will reading. Lauren doesn't know about any of this yet. 3 days later, I sat in Mr. Caldwell's conference room, watching Lauren walk through the door with confidence radiating from every step. She was wearing a new black suit and expensive jewelry I'd never seen before. Behind her walked a man I now recognized from the photographs, Marcus Webb, tall, dark-haired, wearing a smirk that made my skin crawl. Mrs. Bennet, Lauren said with fake surprise. I didn't know you'd be here. Of course she's here, Mr. Caldwell said smoothly. She's Samuel's mother and a beneficiary of his estate. Lauren's smile faltered slightly. Beneficiary? I wasn't aware Samuel left her anything specific. Marcus squeezed her shoulder. Don't worry, babe. It's probably just some personal items. Jewelry, photos, that kind of thing. Mr. Caldwell gestured for everyone to sit down. Lauren chose the chair closest to him, positioning herself like she was the most important person in the room. Before we begin, Mr. Caldwell said, I need to ask Mr. Webb why he's here. This is a private family matter. Marcus is my support system, Lauren said quickly. We've been friends for years. Samuel would have wanted him here. I bit my tongue too. Keep from screaming. Friends. Right. Very well. Let's begin. Mr. Caldwell opened the will and began reading the standard legal language. Lauren sat forward in her chair, barely containing her excitement. I could practically see dollar signs in her eyes. To my beloved wife, Lauren Sinclair Bennett, Mr. Caldwell read, I leave my collection of vintage records and my grandfather's fishing equipment. Lauren blinked. I'm sorry, what? The records and fishing gear, Mr. Caldwell repeated. That concludes the bequest to Mrs. Lauren Bennett. The color drained from Lauren's face. There must be some mistake. Where's the house? The insurance? Money? The retirement accounts? Those items are addressed separately in the will. Marcus leaned forward, his smirk disappearing. This is ridiculous. Lauren is his widow. Everything goes to the surviving spouse automatically. Not when the deceased specifically changes his will to direct otherwise, Mr. Caldwell said calmly. Lauren shot to her feet. This is impossible. Samuel would never. To my beloved mother, Martha Bennett, Mr. Caldwell continued reading. I leave the remainder of my entire estate. This includes, but is not limited to, the family home at 425 Oak Street, all bank accounts, all investment accounts, my life insurance policy, my retirement funds, and any other assets not specifically mentioned herein. The silence in the room was deafening. Lauren stared at the layer like he'd grown a second head. That's not possible. When was this will written? It was executed 2 days before your husband's death, Mrs. Bennett. He came to this office specifically to make these changes. 2 days before? Lauren's voice rose to a shriek. Why would he do that? We were happy. We were planning our future together. I found my voice for the first time since entering the room. Were you planning that future with Marcus? Every head in the room turned to look at me. Lauren went white as a sheet. I don't know what you mean, she stammered. I stood up slowly, feeling strength I hadn't felt in weeks flowing through my body. I mean the affair you've been having. For 8 months. I mean the emails you sent to Marcus about tearing down my house to build condos. I mean the legal documents you forged to try to steal Samuel's inheritance. Marcus jumped up from his chair. We don't have to listen to this crazy old woman. Sit down, Mr. Webb, a new voice said from the doorway. We all turned to see Detective Rodriguez entering the conference room with 2 uniformed officers behind him. Lauren Bennett and Marcus Webb, you're both under arrest. Lauren's face went through several shades of white as Detective Rodriguez read her rights. This is insane, she screamed. Arrest for what? I haven't done anything wrong.
Insurance.
Fraud, forgery, conspiracy to commit theft, the detective said calmly. And we're reopening the investigation into your husband's death. Marcus tried to make a run for it, but the uniformed officers caught him before he reached the door. The truck, Marcus, Detective Rodriguez continued. The one that killed Samuel Bennett. It was stolen from your construction site. Your fingerprints are all over the steering wheel. Lauren spun around to stare at Marcus, and for the first time, I saw real fear in her eyes. You said it was an accident, she whispered. You said you just borrowed the truck to scare him. Shut up, Lauren, Marcus snarled. Don't say another word, but it was too late. She'd already confessed. Mrs. Bennett, Detective Rodriguez said gently, turning to me. We found text messages between your daughter-in-law and Mr. Webb planning to intimidate your son into leaving his will unchanged. The intimidation escalated into vehicular homicide. I sank back into my chair, the full horror of what had happened washing over me. They had murdered my son, for money, for a house, for greed. Samuel found out about the affair, I said, my voice hollow.
He found out Lauren was trying to steal the house.
So she had him killed. Lauren was sobbing now, but they weren't tears of grief. They were tears of a criminal who'd been caught. It wasn't supposed to happen like that, she cried. Marcus was just supposed to scare him, make him think twice about changing the will, by ramming a stolen truck into his car. Detective Rodriguez asked, "That was your idea of intimidation?" As the officers led Lauren and Marcus away in handcuffs, Lauren looked back at me one last time. "You don't deserve any of this, Martha," she spat. "You're just a sad old woman who never did anything with her life." I stood up slowly, feeling decades of doubt and insecurity falling away from my shoulders like an old coat. "You're right, Lauren. I never became rich or famous. I never built a business empire or traveled the world." I walked closer to her, looking directly into her eyes. "But I raised a son who was smart enough to see through your lies. A son who loved his mother enough to protect her even after death. A son who had more integrity in his little finger than you have in your entire body." Lauren's face crumpled. "But I wasn't finished. And unlike you, I never murdered anyone for money." The officers led her away, and I never saw her again. 6 months later, I stood in the kitchen of my home now. Legally and forever making coffee and watching the sunrise through the window. Samuel had helped me install new blinds on just last Christmas. The trial had been swift. Lauren was sentenced to life in prison for conspiracy to commit murder. Marcus got the same sentence for actually carrying out the killing. The evidence was overwhelming: text messages, financial documents, witness testimony from the private investigator. But the most damning evidence was Lauren's own confession in that conference room, caught on the security cameras that Mr. Caldwell had installed after a break-in the previous year. Justice had been served, but it didn't bring Samuel back. I walked into the living room, where I'd hung a new photo of Samuel on the mantelpiece. It was taken last summer at a family barbecue, and he was laughing at something his father had said before Robert died. My two favorite men, both gone too soon. "You saved me, baby," I whispered to the photo. Even when I didn't know I needed saving. The life insurance money had been deposited into my account. The house was mine, free and clear. Samuel's retirement savings would ensure I never had to worry about money again. But more importantly, his love had saved me from becoming homeless at 58, betrayed by someone I'd trusted like a daughter. My phone rang, interrupting my thoughts. It was Helen, my coffee date friend. "Martha, I just saw on the news that they sentenced that awful Lauren woman. How are you holding up?" I looked around my living room, at the photos of my family, at the furniture Samuel had helped me choose, at the life I'd built with love instead of greed. "I'm okay, Helen. For the first time since Samuel died, I'm actually okay." "Good. You deserve peace after everything you've been through. What are you going to do now?" It was a fair question. I was 58 years old with enough money to live comfortably for the rest of my life. I could travel, move somewhere warm, start a new chapter completely. But as I looked at Samuel's photo, I knew what I wanted to do. "I'm going to set up a foundation," I said, "for people who've been victims of financial abuse by family members." Samuel would want his money to help other people who've been betrayed by the ones they trusted most. 2 years later, I received a letter in the mail from the state prison. It was from Lauren. I almost threw it away without reading it, but curiosity got the better of me. "Dear Martha," it began. "I know you have no reason to read this, but I needed to try to explain." She went on to describe her childhood, her fears about money, her desperation to secure her future. She claimed Marcus had manipulated her, convinced her that stealing from Samuel was justified because he had so much already. But the part that stuck with me was near the end. I realized now that I destroyed the only real family I ever had. "Samuel loved me, and you welcomed me like a daughter. I threw that away for money that would never have made me truly happy. I think about that house every day, about the life I could have had if I hadn't been so greedy and stupid." She ended with, "I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that karma is real, and I'm living proof of what happens when you hurt good people." I folded the letter and put it in my desk drawer. I didn't hate Lauren anymore. Hate was too heavy to carry. and life was too short to waste on people who'd chosen greed over love. Instead, I focused on the Samuel Bennett Foundation for Financial Abuse Victims, which had helped over 200 families in its first year. I focused on the garden I had planted in Samuel's memory, which bloomed more beautifully each spring. I focused on the volunteer work I did at the local shelter, helping other women who'd been betrayed by people they trusted. Lauren was right about one thing: karma is real. But it doesn't just punish the guilty. It also rewards the innocent, sometimes in ways we never expect. Samuel's love had protected me from beyond the grave. His wisdom had saved me from losing everything to a woman who saw me as nothing more than an obstacle to overcome. And every morning, when I wake up in the house where I raised my beautiful boy, I'm reminded that sometimes the people who hurt us think they're winning, but love always wins in the end. The house keys Lauren stole from me. I had them melted down and turned into a pendant that I wear every day. It reminds me that home isn't just a place, it's the love that fills it, and no one can ever steal that. What do you think? Have you ever been betrayed by someone you trusted? How did you find the strength to move forward? Share your story in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more real-life stories of justice and redemption.